Hi, everybody. It's Alex Jarett with Technology Executives Club, and I'm really happy to introduce you to Elaine Cartier. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Alex.
Nice to see you. I appreciate you being here.
Nice seeing you too. Really glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, Elaine, everybody, is Senior Director of Digital Transformation at a company called Ciena. And we're going to talk about Elaine and her background because she's just one of our new Board of Advisor members. So, Elaine, first of all, thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. And welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be part of this wonderful, esteemed group of people. So thanks for having this forum and including me.
Well, we appreciate that. So what we try and do in these board of advisor interviews, as everybody knows if they've been watching our stuff, we have the board of advisor interviews, and then we have our regular technology executive review show or podcast. And this, we put this on the same channels. But what we do in these is just let people get to know you a little. How's that sound?
Sounds wonderful.
Good.
Love it.
And then along the way, some of the lessons that you learned, because the whole point about the board of advisors, I like to say, the board of advisors is not the board of advisors to me, although I certainly learn from everybody. It's the board of advisors to the overall technology community. And I've been using a new phrase lately, I'm going to use more and more, is I see you and the other your peers as technology leaders. And we like to elevate people to the technology leader role. I mean, the world is changing so much, and I think technology is making so much more of an impact in our world. You all are technology leaders. You are helping people around you. And so that's how I see it. So we're happy to have you in that group. All right, so let's get to it. What I like to do again is kind of go through your background. I'll start with through the education, just to start, because I think you have a very interesting background. You started out at University of Michigan.
Hmm.
Go blue, right?
Oh, Blue, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And you had a Bachelor of Arts. This is actually interesting to me. BA Industrial and Organizational Psychology.
That's right.
I
That's
need
right.
I need a psychologist. I think this would be helpful.
Um, Alex, it was a roundabout way that I finally understood that's the degree that I was really interesting to me and that I really wanted to spend my time. I actually started to look at business as as a degree, and then looked at maybe computer science and got into a couple computer programming classes. And I quickly realized the computer programming classes wasn't for me. While technology, eventually I got into technology. While technology is very interesting to me, but I just don't have the coding, mind like some of the very, very smart people out there.
Yeah.
So quickly I realized, having an interest in something and and really, really excited about doing that is really important. It doesn't matter what you do. That's really important, regardless what people tell me that I should be getting into to be successful. So, because initially that's why I was looking at business, computer science, and maybe that's what I need to or should do to be successful.
That's
When I
interesting.
when I started to take some psychology classes just because it was interesting,
Uh-huh.
I realized how much that really seep in through understanding people, behaviors, and how interesting people's minds are, psychology of it. So and then I talked to a counselor actually in school and say, I took these economics classes and I took these computer programming classes and just really not truly interested, but these kind of psychology classes were really interesting. And she advised me that you need to go with what you're really excited about so that you could actually
Do
enjoy
well.
and do well. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I switched from more of this um, traditional psychology to organizational psychology, because that's where I thought was really going to meld this psychology degree and business together. So it's been really helpful
Oh,
actually
that's
for.
interesting. That was a good choice. The
Oh, that was a good
organizational
choice.
psychology. Yeah, because we'll talk in a few minutes. Well, I know you're in digital transformation, you get things done, you manage huge websites and customer experience, which we'll get to everybody. So it was clearly a good choice. I haven't, a lot of people that I interview that are in more of a technology role, they do have that technology, like engineering or whatever. They have to learn the people part later. And you learned some of the people, a big part of the people part up front. And I've heard from so many people that technology, this is so and non-intuitive that technology is really much of a people business, right?
Absolutely. And it's really cliche, but you hear people probably say that digital transformation is about people, process, and technology.
Yeah,
And technology sometimes might be the easiest part, is the people and the process that's the most difficult
that's
to
right.
transform or to change. So I think not realizing this when I was getting my degree, I was just really interested in the organizational psychology space, but not realizing how helpful that is, it has been helping with my career,
Well,
my
that
journey.
well, anyways, I'm glad we highlighted that because it was a little, it's unique, and I think it's great, and it clearly helped you. You also got a master's, an MBA from Northwestern, and clearly that's helped you as an executive, I would imagine, right?
Absolutely, Alex. And that was one of I got my Kellogg degree,
Uh-huh.
executive MBA degree back in 2009. Really, it's been a minute. And that's when I felt it was one of the pivotal moments in my
Really?
career. Yes, because that degree, because I've been working for a while and then got that degree. So I was able to really relate to a lot of the business problems that the course materials are trying to teach on how to solve. So
Uh-huh.
that was really helpful. And then second is understanding more about the business world, and then especially the people that are in the class. And that was I think half of the value from getting that degree is
Oh,
interacting and understanding and listening to the people that are attending the class, of their experiences, how they've solved problems. And I think half of the value from the degree was from the course itself, the curriculum, and then the other half is really listening to real world problems from various levels of people in their organizations, and understand how they solve the problems and how
that's
they relate
interesting.
to the course, and how they're applying certain learnings to solve those problems. So and I am still in touch with those classmates today. And actually next week I'm going to go back to the Kellogg Women's Summit. So I'm super
Oh,
excited to see some of the classmates that I went to school with.
yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll be excited to see you as well because you've just done so well. Well, that's interesting. And, I keep interviewing people that are, technology leaders and grateful for that. And, you read in the trades like, oh, our MBA is still worth it and everything. But I keep talking to people that are very successful executives, and they say the same thing you just did, which is it's a pivotal moment in my career. And I had one executive say that he was looking around the room and this on a board meeting, every single executive had an MBA or a master's like that at that level. And it's just in business, that's a very helpful thing because you understand how the business works, not
And
just
I
one
think
part of it.
it's not just a sheet of paper as far as the degree. And I think
Yeah.
the benefit or the outcome that you get from an MBA does depend on how much you are willing to put into it, and
Yeah.
and how much you're trying to, how much effort you put into it, and how much um, you enjoy it. So I think having that was really important for me, because it opened up my mind not only about um, the back office business that I was more focusing on.
Uh-huh.
It also gave me a lot of information and knowledge on how the front end of the business
Oh,
work. And that
that's interesting.
I think it did help me in improving and giving me the knowledge and the skill set on continuously improve on being more strategic, and with my career, it absolutely helped me to be able to speak the business language. So whether it's ROI or business benefit or think differently from that perspective, it absolutely helped me as an executive today, on how to think differently and how to challenge the status quo and how to inspire others and be more innovative.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, those are good phrases to move on to your career. So let's do that.
All
So,
right.
you know, the first thing that I see when I looked at your LinkedIn profile is business systems manager of Midwest at Acuity. But real quickly, before that, what kinds of, what was your, how did you start? How did you get to Acuity? Maybe just tell us that. And you can just
Yeah.
net that out if you want.
So actually, when I was there, the company was still Juno Lighting, and
Uh-huh.
it has a special place in my heart. So the way that I started my career is, I got an interview with a company called Bond, which is a software company, and it's
Uh-huh.
been bought out a couple times now. It's Infor, and this company had a headquarter in the Netherlands, and they would train people on how to use their software, and then they could become ERP implementation consultants and come
Uh-huh.
back to the US or wherever the country that they're living at, then to help people to implement the software.
Oh,
So in that experience was amazing. I was able to travel in Europe for 9 weeks and
wow.
also expand my horizon even further. And that's how I actually got into technology, is through that opportunity. And then, um, growing from that, then I was further interested, very much interested in the business. So I really became that conduit between IT and business.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually I, grew up in, the ladder, and start managing IT engineering teams on delivering value and functionalities to the business. More in the beginning, was in the first half of my career, was more focusing on the back office. And
Gotcha.
then once I got my MBA and expanded my horizon, and even further, I got into the front end of the business and really starting to focus on implementing e-commerce and getting into the marketing and product line management type of technology, so that I could have the full suite of end-to-end,
Oh, I see.
business process knowledge as well as technology. So
Got you.
that's a bit of how I started, and then how I got into the whole e-commerce world as well.
Okay, so at Acuity, it was business systems manager. So you had not gone to the front end, you were more in the back end at
That's
Acuity?
right. That's
Yeah.
right. So at that moment, it was more managing and delivering functionalities for applications that is focusing on the back office. So warehouse management system, ERP, HR systems, and all those, type of applications. And then
Ah,
after that, when I went to CDWs, when I started managing more of the front end of the application, so e-commerce marketing and product line management, that kind of
all right, we'll,
application.
we'll we'll get to CDW second. So I get that. I get that. So you started out in consulting, you were helping people implement, and one thing led to another, and then you ended up going to Acuity, and you rose in Acuity. You became business manager, a business systems manager. I see in the Midwest, and it says you were doing all the back end stuff, but you had a lot of great success there, uh, doing back end work. If you don't know the back end, you don't know how to make profit.
Yeah, and
Because,
it's
bringing in, this is a friend of mine would always say, to look at my business, Alex, it's not just bringing the money in, it's the profit. You got to know how to do the back end to make the profit. So you got a good understanding of that. And
and
then you're
that was
saying, go ahead.
yeah, and that was really really great experience, because it really helped me how a business is run.
Yes.
So from a manufacturing, yes, of course you got to do the sales and the marketing and the product
Yeah.
development and all that. And then the heavy lifting of actually manufacturing that product, how you distribute that product, and then how do you account for that product from an invoice, and how do you pay for that product. So all those back office important transactional systems and processes, that's when I was able to really work closely with my users and my stakeholders to understand what their pain points are and
Oh,
how to leverage technology to help them to solve their business problems.
that's an
So
interesting skill. And this is where your organizational, your degree, your initial degree starts to come into play because you can see that you had great success at Acuity. You achieved a 15% surge in productivity, 600K software cost reduction. I mean, just look at her profile. You got all these different successes that you had. And that's a function of being able to work with your stakeholders and get these things done, I'm imagining.
I
Right?
believe so. I believe so, Alex, because implementing or delivering any new technology capabilities
Uh-huh.
really require a lot of change.
Yeah.
And how do you compel to the users to say this is the right way to do it, or that this is really going to help their job and not make them feel like they're going to
Yeah.
be replaced by
Yeah.
technology? So
Yeah.
there is a lot of organizational psychology in that
It
that I
totally
do
is.
that
Yeah.
I do believe that the degree had helped with that transformation or that change management activity.
Yeah.
And that continues to persist in my career today.
Okay. So now let's switch to CDW. First of all, how did you switched over? Did you come right in as a senior manager in e-commerce of solutions?
Yes.
So you made a jump. This was a pivot because you
Yes.
not only made a jump to a different company to a similar role and but on the front end is how you
That's
describe it.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So
It was I had the opportunity to implement e-commerce website when I was at Juno Acuity, and that was
oh,
so interesting to me that when this opportunity came up at CDW, I was really I couldn't pass it up because it will allow me to be able to work at the front end of the office and be able to really start tapping into this customer experience from an external perspective. So I care about customer experience when we were working internal back office type of
yeah. Yeah.
implementation, and those customer experiences was really internal customers, our users. That's also very important. But when I was able to get to the external customers and then start working with marketing and search teams and these different business units, sales, that's a whole area that a lot of the MBA classes were about. And how do you promote, how do you place a product in the place that the customers would want, and how do you actually improve that customer experience so that they would actually use your product. So all that was so interesting to me, and I thought that would really give me um, another bump into my knowledge and
Yeah.
also my experience in the whole entire enterprise process. So when that opportunity came up, I couldn't pass it up. And while I loved working with my Juno friends, and that was something that I felt like
Yeah.
doing as my as a step change in my career.
So what? So I mean, all of a sudden you're running a 10 million annual budget, and you got a team of 15 to 65. And what were some of the big lessons learned? Because because you did that for 5 years, and then
Mm-hmm.
then you jumped to business transformation. So obviously you were doing something well. What were some of the big lessons that you learned that have really helped you in that role? In e-commerce, because CDW is one of those companies that just took off, and that website, I remember I used that website during that period.
That's great.
And
I hope
yeah,
that you enjoy the website.
I bought,
Yeah, that's good.
so,
That's good. Then that means
so
it
you
was
sold me
successful.
something, you know, but
So I think,
that was a
yeah.
time when that was still new.
Yes, yes, yes. That's still so. I think a couple important lessons learned that I
Yeah,
had in CDW that helped me to be successful. One is this notion of innovation.
yeah.
So innovation to me is not necessarily inventing something that no one has ever done before. It's more, to me, it was more about looking at how to change our own processes or the way that we do things differently.
Huh.
So even though somebody else has done it before and we're now changing to mimic that same way, that's still innovation
Yeah.
that's relative to us.
Yeah, you don't
So
have to invent the secret formula. You just
yes,
gotta use it.
to be able to
Yeah.
identify, understand, and have that vision to
Yeah.
say that is the future, and that is how we're going to be able to win, and then be able to influence and drive the team to get to the end goal. So one of the biggest lessons learned is need to be able to think bigger and understand the business and understand what is the outcome the business is trying to achieve,
That's a
and
good
then
one.
align my work to enable that. So what does that mean? Whether it's technology, what is that future state vision? How to create that, and really just be humble and research. And actually, I attended a lot of the technology executive
I
sessions
remember
where
that. Yeah.
listening to other people, what other people are doing, and how are they solving their business problems. So lesson learned is focusing on that business outcome and making sure that we're not delivering widgets that's not really aligning to enable that business outcome. So that's one of the biggest thing. If we keep that business outcome in mind, then we're going to be delivering the right thing to achieve that. So that's one thing. And two is, if you could paint that vision, then they're likely very smart people on your team that could actually help you to achieve that vision. Because that's exactly what I did at CDW with the e-commerce engineering team. I it's lots of research, listening, talking to people, and then I had this vision of going to
Oh,
this microservices technology, going to this DevOps and this agile transformation. And that was one of the biggest change that we did in the engineering group and the
oh,
IT group to help them to do things differently. Other people have done it. It's not something I just dreamed up.
yeah.
It's just a matter of being able to create that vision, structure that strategy, and then get the really smart people on my team to be able to come up with the execution plan and execute and drive and enable them and empower them to drive that change. So business outcome focused, and be able to, and also be able to articulate that vision and strategy clearly for your team, and empower them and enable them to get that
That
done.
that's a really good like a little roadmap there you just gave us. Is
Yeah.
it you look at you look at your where you want to be and define that, come back and say, okay, these are the outcomes that we need to do to get there,
Yep.
right? And then articulate that, create the vision, articulate that, and then empower your team.
Yes.
Is
That's
that, did I
right.
get it? Yeah,
You got it. That's
I got
right.
it. It's interesting. I interviewed somebody else the other day, a CTO from a number of well-known brands, and he said something very similar. He said, see where you want to be 5 years from now and go backwards.
Mhm.
Reverse engineer it to get there, to see the steps that you need to get there. So you're saying something very similar. So, but to make that happen, you've got to change the people as well as have the technical leadership or empowerment of your team. So here's the plan. Here's the thing. When you make these transformations, do you manage the plan or you just empower the people to do it at this point and
It's really both.
say, here's the vision, make it happen kind of
Yeah,
thing?
it's really both. And with that articulation of the vision,
Yeah.
one of the most important lesson learned is for me is to make sure that I could articulate that business outcome clearly to the leaders who's going to give me the budget and the resources and the
Uh-huh.
time to make it happen. So understanding that business outcome then is then holding myself and my team accountable on what is the KPI that we're going to measure success, and how do we actually measure success and then be able to track that success after the fact.
Hmm.
So that's the other thing that I found was really important for the leaders to be able to buy in into the vision, as well as the team to buy in into the vision. So without that KPI or success or business outcome to say, this is, we're going to, whether it's improving productivity or delivery the features faster, or compelling my team to say, you don't have to stay up at 1 a.m. anymore to do these humongous releases that you hate, not being able to be with your family. Those type of business outcome, that what I found is really effective in getting people to buy in the vision that I'm trying to paint and why we want to change. So that's the other thing that I found that has worked throughout my career and today as well, is to help people understand what is that KPI, what is that impact that we're going to make on the business.
That's really interesting is that you were talking about KPIs and impact on the business, but I was hearing you put in your organizational psychology in there as one of the KPIs is that, or one of the outputs. And that's how you sold it to your team to make it happen. So that's a really good insight, because I think a lot of people look at the KPIs and the outcomes, and they might think like this many units or this many sales per month, or clearly those are critical, right? But you just mentioned something that was very personal to the people trying to get the work done. So you really incented them by saying, you can go home.
Yes,
and I've
and that's where I found that it's much easier to get people to buy in or influence their thinking if I could try to put myself in their shoes a bit.
Yes.
What is their challenge? What is their pain point? And whatever this thing that I'm delivering, is that really going to change that? So when you ask me if I'm managing the plan or empowering my team to do that, it's really both. My team has to do that smart things that they do and execute and actually make it happen. And I'm more influencing on the higher level where whether it's getting the leaders or hire, the C-suite folks to buy in and support and fund, or getting the stakeholders to understand the value so that we can actually make those changes. Those are, so I would say probably both.
That's such a good insight. I think maybe not everybody gets that you got to do both.
Yeah.
If you just do the business part for the execs, they're going to say, yeah, great, let's make it happen. You're going to go back to the team that has to make it happen. They're going to go, why do I care?
Yeah. So they have to, and I do find that more often than not, including the team into that discovery process of helping them understand why they're doing this, why they're delivering this feature is extremely helpful, and not only motivate them, inspire them, and also they could coming up with ideas that others have not thought of. So it's really important to get them involved early on so that they understand the why.
That's great. Now, while you're at CDW, for people just listening to this, I mean, just so you went from e-commerce to business transformation, and you became director of business transformation, had some huge successes there, big B2B product transformation portfolio. I mean, you were talking about savings target of $100 million on process reengineering, vendor management, and digital innovation. I mean, you had some huge wins. So is there anything you want to highlight in that part that say, hey, here was something I'm really proud of, and this was sort of the lesson learned? Because I think we've been talking general, but anything specific that you said, yeah, this is worth talking about, or just mentioning?
Yes, and once I got into business transformation and digital transformation, and I feel like that's really the terminology that's been more common the last maybe 10 years. I realized what I've been doing my entire career is digital transformation, is business transformation. It's no different.
It's true.
Even, it doesn't matter if I'm in IT or I'm outside of IT, I'm sitting in the business. It's all the same, which is understanding the business outcome or the problem that we're trying to solve, and then leverage technology and process changes to solve those problems and provide value to the business. So it doesn't matter where I sit, it's all the same. So with the business transformation work that I did, I think it made it even more concrete or more formalized on the different gates that we go through in order to get that ultimate value. Mm-hmm. So discovery, understanding the opportunity. Is there money there? Is it worth the time to go get? If so, then understand the feasibility, how we're actually going to to what solution and how I'm actually going to do it, and create that business case, and then get that approval, that business case approval, and then of course execute when it's approved, and then actually track that business value. So those are very clear gates or steps to get to that end game. And the fact that tracking is so important because we track, because we actually show dollars, then we're able to continue to get funding and continue the great work that the team is doing. Mm-hmm. So that to me is so clear on how we absolutely need to run business or digital transformation programs, is to be able to do those different steps and absolutely tracking that value so that we could continue to show the value and then continue to get funding to do the work that we do.
You know, it sounds like you've really created I've heard the phrase center of excellence, but a framework for transformation through your career.
Yes.
Am I hearing that right? I mean,
I think you hit it around the nail there, Alex. Yeah. And maybe I don't call it a framework. I just call it a process. And this is but you're absolutely right, is that I do have a framework that I think has worked really well at CDW in terms of business transformation. And we were able to track the value and actually take that budget from the different business units that we're delivering the functionality to, and then reinvest back into CDW. So that was the concept.
You figured it out.
Yeah, that was the concept, and that's exactly what we did.
Now, anything else from CDW? Because I want to now jump to Ciena.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, now Ciena, for everybody who doesn't know, what kind of company is Ciena?
It is the technology company. We focus on telecommunication products. Okay. So the modems, hardware, and we also provide services to install them.
Okay. Oh, great. And so tell us, you got that role. You came in as senior director, right? Digital transformation. Correct. And you've been doing that at the time of this interview for 3.5 years or so. So tell us about what you're doing there and kind of what you've learned there. Because it sounds like a continuation of what you were doing at CW, just with different environment.
Yeah, it is, Alex. So it is this continuation of digital transformation, with the exception that CDW, it was focusing on enterprise, and here at Ciena is focusing on the supply chain. Oh. So I came here right during COVID, and as you recall, supply chain was everybody's supply chain was going a bit crazy. So I thought it was a really great space to come back into, because before when I was at Juno Acuity, that's when I was really involved in supply chain with the back office transactions.
I remember you saying back office, and I didn't catch the supply chain.
Yeah, it's essentially the whole supply chain piece. Yeah. Back when I was doing that piece. So now it's a bit of coming home, so to speak, where I'm coming back and focusing on supply chain. And supply chain has changed dramatically since the days that I was at Juno. Yeah. Of course, just the whether it's the process or the technology. So it has been really interesting to me, and that's why I chose to come here as well, is to learn. And that's one thing that Alex, I always look for in any role that I have is continuous learning. So so I had a point of view of what supply chain looked like before, and then now I can learn more about what it looks like today, and then also the technologies around how to support supply chain. Because before I was more focused on the ERP, the more transactional space,
Yeah.
and the supply chain here has all the pieces, whether it's transactional or the planning portion of it, and the technology in the space has just blown up. It's vast. It's really interesting, and it's such a critical element of any organization
Yeah.
that it's been amazing to be here and be able to transform along the supply chain team and be able to bring value to the team.
So anything that, I mean, that sounds cool. I mean, you're right. I mean, I read about a company like Amazon, which is kind of a good comp for some of your experiences because they have customer experience, which you did in CDW,
Hmm.
but they also have an amazing supply chain system.
They
I,
do. They
you
do.
know, and so you've got that same experience where you have that front end and back end supply chain, and now you're doing supply chain. Because, like you said, sales is obviously without sales, there is no company, but without great back end, you're not going to keep your customers.
Right, right. You gotta meet those dates that you're
Yeah,
selling those products to for the
yeah,
customer. That's right. That's right. And so being here, I think just like every company is
yeah.
trying to sell a product, trying to move the product and ship the product to the customer, making sure that we're meeting those expectations. And and somehow, the supply chain team always has a way to pull a rabbit out of the hat and make it happen. So my goal here is to help them, to enable them to be better, to continue to reduce that manual work and
Oh,
improve. So the vision that I have for digital transformation here for supply chain is
yeah.
create that digital twin for supply chain so that
Oh,
they could put that physical supply chain on a computer screen and allow our supply chain team members to be able to see information at their fingertips, be able to leverage machine to give them insights and make decisions faster in order to serve our customers better, and then be able to really leverage all the resources that we have and manage exceptions and be able to react to and respond and be proactive to any potential risks that we have. So without having a lot of that information at their fingertips, then it requires people to pull, to put together, and that's the transformation I'm trying to bring to Ciena, is to allow people to have that digital twin and be able to make decisions on the fly with facts and eventually also, and we're already starting to do some of that, is leveraging AI to help our team.
wow. Now that's really cool vision. I'm glad you shared that because, um, I kind of get a sense that at Sienna, like you said, you have a great team that you maybe inherited a lot of them, and they were just great people. They are great people, and just like you said, pulling a rabbit out of the hat. But what you're trying to do is create a system where they don't always have to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah.
It's the system. The system does it, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I love this digital twin, vision. I of course read about it. And I've talked to other people about it, but it is the kind of thing you see like in movies and stuff where you say, "Oh, here's the whole railroad network. Here's everything you see, and you're moving things around." And you
Yeah,
know,
honestly, Alex is not too far away from that.
I
It
know,
is to allow people. I mean, some of these movies that we may think is really far fetched, but it's really not. It's
it's getting pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Some companies are already doing it, and
Yeah,
how do we leverage similar technologies to be able to help us? Yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
So I like that. Again, you're back on that big lesson learned, which was to, I think this is the for transformation, have that vision, What do those outputs look like? And then but you got to sell it. You got to paint you can have the vision, but you got to paint the vision. And for your stakeholders, you got to tell them what's important to them, whether
That's
it's,
right.
yeah, whether it's the board, the senior management, the people that got to do the job.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so yeah, how's it going to change their lives or their business situation? And then you got to track it.
Yes.
You got to
Gotta track
track
it.
it.
Are
Yeah.
we actually getting that value? That's right.
Yeah. Boy, you've got to, I think, would this be called a center of excellence for transformation? I would give that to you. I think that, would you call it a center of excellence or more of a framework that you've created? Because, you as an executive, as an internal business consultant, I'll say it that way,
Yeah,
you've come up with this business process, that is really, look what you're doing for all these companies. I mean, you're helping them in terms of value, millions of dollars a year. That's what you've been doing.
yeah. Whether it's center of excellence or a framework or it's similar. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it is. It is a type of center of excellence that I've created to be able to deliver this type of work to the company with value and with a plan, execution, be able to track it, like you say.
that's great.
And it's one of the things that I continue to. One of my passion is to develop and motivate team members and really see them grow, just as others have done for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I continue to push them out of their comfort zone is to, I joke about, come and, jump off the cliff with me, or at least stand next to the cliff with me. So we could kind of see what's going on out there and not be afraid. So the more that I feel I can inspire people to do that, do things differently, it just really gives me a lot of joy.
I like
One
to
of
hear
the,
that. That's
yeah,
nice.
one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm gonna have to bring my husband into the picture here, that I always tell people about the story where he's an amazing skier. I'm an okay
Yeah.
skier. I could hold
Yeah.
my own. But he has this. We've been together for a very long time, and he
That's
always
good.
has this vision of me being able to. He knows my limits, so he would push me to a certain limit, and I'm always surprised that, wow, I did not think that I could go down this black, and he would be like, "Yep, I think you can, no problem." And I go down, I'm okay. Yes, maybe I fall a couple times, but at least I'm
Yeah.
okay. And there are times when he's like, "Don't go down this one. This is just really crazy."
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Don't do
but
that
I
one.
hope that
Yeah.
I could do that for my team members as well, is to really inspire them and motivate them to say, "Yes, you could do it. Try it. You may get some bumps, but that's okay." And
That's
then
such a good analogy. Yeah. That's great. Because I know when we were talking just when you first joined and we were having, which I do with everybody who first joins and get to know them a little and what kinds of things they want to share. You talked about how important inspiring others with you. I think that's a sign of a true leader. It's not, I haven't heard you talk about you at all in this entire conversation,
um,
which is really, great. I mean, the fact that you care. I mean, you really care about these people that you're working with. Like you talk about you're still connected with the MBA, you're still connected with the other people, and you care about their their situation and all that. I mean, that it really is a line that really does start from the beginning, but you kept going and kept going higher and higher. I can't wait to see what's next. So let's talk a little about some of your volunteer work. You're also on the board of another group, but this is the actual board of directors, which is different everybody than a board of advisors. So you're the chair of a board of directors of a group called EAL Green.
mhm,
What is
yeah.
that? What is that?
It is a really interesting nonprofit organization.
Uh,
It's located in Chicago, and essentially the mission of the nonprofit is to how to leverage recycle products or products that companies typically maybe throw out or
uh,
somehow dispose it, and resell those products to universities at a
Oh,
very, very low rate so that universities could take that money that they would have spent on something that's more expensive and then carve out scholarships for their students. So
wow.
that's the mission, is to impact the earth and focus on sustainability and how to continue the recycle and reuse products. And then on the other hand is to help students to be able to financially support them in their education journey.
Well, that's a great mission. So everybody check out EAL Green, capital E, capital A, L, capital L, Green. And if that's something you're interested in, check it out. It looks like it's great. But you've been the chair of the board for a number of years. So I
Yes.
think that's great, getting that real boardroom experience. And I see a lot of very senior executives I talk to that initially do get their initial boardroom experience in this situation. So just a little plug for Elaine here. She's ready for a board, for a paying board between your digital transformation and work and this. I can't wait to continue to watch your journey.
Oh,
So
thanks, Alex. I really
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, this has been awesome. And I've really enjoyed listening and learning about your journey, but also this framework that you created. You're clear, very strategic, but I think one of the things I really like about you is that you're authentic. You're not, like I said, you're not just trying to sell yourself and get this done. It really is about the people around you. And I see that a lot of in technology leaders that I admire, they realize that they're there to help the roles of other people. And that ties into your other strengths, I think. I was just taking my notes. You really do inspire people, and I think that is a sign of a true leader. So I appreciate you sharing sort of what's inside, what your strategies are and what's inside. You know, on your everybody take a look at Elaine's. You're probably looking at it now. If you're listening to this, go to our site, Technology Executives Club, and look at her profile. And you'll also see there that she's got. We didn't talk about all these, Elaine, but maybe we'll do some sessions on this outcome-based digital and business transformation. Clearly, that's the big overreach, the big area that you're really strong in, but also product strategy and delivery.
Hmm.
That's a big one.
Yep.
Um, and clearly you've done that. I imagine that was part of CDW where you
Yep.
were doing that. Yep. Organizational design, talent development, and coaching. We talked a little about that. And then strategic planning, vision, and innovation. So those are four really great categories. Maybe how's it sound? Maybe a couple of those we'll do a session on, like
Yeah, that
just one
sounds
thing.
great.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
that sounds great. I'd love to. I could probably talk hours on any of those topics.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll take you up on some of that. So we appreciate that. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to close with, Elaine?
I think just thank you, Alex, for this opportunity. And it's one of the self-development learnings is to talk about myself a little bit more and what I do. And through these kind of conversations it always reminds me of some of the things that I do and that I'm really passionate about. So I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.